Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. And I welcome my guests here. We will talk about the electronic data management, a subject that is definitely fascinating, not easy, of course, perhaps easier for some universities and not so easy for others. For other schools which continue to rely on paper more than others. And it is also a subject that for the first time has been so comprehensively described by the law. And there are quite considerable expectations in this context, expectations of the universities, and there's an expectation of a support to public administration structures in in the process of getting rid of paper in communication. The PCG Academia, we were struggling to invite some lady to this panel on the DMS, but we have not found a lady named Łukasz. That was problem number one. And the second one was that the meetings and commitments of the available ladies clashed, and we could not have them with us. But we have now three perspectives: the system, the ministry, on whose behalf Łukasz Wawer will speak to us. I love meeting with Łukasz and discussing about these subjects with him, because Łukasz is a kind of person who likes to be sure what he is implementing. He likes to know all the details of the products and services involved and how they are mutually interconnected and interrelated. We also have deputy head of the WEBCON company, Mr. Łukasz Wróbel, who his company cooperates with PCG Academia for 2.5 years, so right now. And I've got to say that this is one of the most dynamically developing partnerships between us. This partnership and cooperation consists in the fact that WEBCON offers an excellent product, which every year wins the title of product number one in its field, public and private sectors alike, in the category of the electronic data management. And the WEBCON, their approach, the low-code approach, and basing this solution on such mechanisms which do not require coding, programming, when you want to build a system for digital data management and some application for it, and then link it with the university systems. So I've got to say that none of our business lines have experienced such a strong and quick development in the last 2 years. 17 implementations in all sorts of public and non-public and artistic and technical universities. So Łukasz represents this perspective of the software vendor who supplies it and who can help in switching into the digital method. And finally, we've got Dariusz Żelasko from the Technical University of Cracow, Tadeusz Kościuszko University. It is a school which joined the WEBCON all in, so to speak, by running a large project co-financed by the EU. Highly ambitious project it was. This project implemented the solution in most of the functional areas of the whole university, from financing to accounting, from HR and all other departments. So the school has its own discipline-related products, but what they do is to make all these data flow, and the end result in the form of a signed document is either sent to the student or goes into the files. So this was a highly ambitious project. Dariusz is the project manager on the project. On behalf of the university, we do cooperate very closely, and we will talk about that cooperation later on. Now, I will allow myself to start with you, Łukasz. That is the perspective, the systemic perspective on the subject. Never before the ministry has talked too much to the universities about digitization. So why this investment, these projects, why is it so important for you? Well, first of all, it's difficult to say that the universities have some particular focus on it. No, the general trend is to go digital in all aspects and sides of life. We also have a document, Road to the Digital Decade, at the European level, and that document provides that 100% of the main services and matters that the citizens have to arrange with the administration must be done online. And the Ministry of Education and my department is implementing these goals resulting from that policy. So we are I mentioned some of these things earlier today, but we are in the process of doing a number of projects addressed to universities, and I hope that we have sorted out our own area pretty well so far, and now we can start helping the universities in going through certain processes. So we have this priceless Center for Data Processing. And they do a lot of tasks for us. Then we have the scientists themselves. Then we have the Institute of Education Studies. And we have this education account. And this law on higher education has a paragraph that the minister can communicate with the university via other methods, not only delivery. So all the projects that things that the portal Gov will implement, they will not use the e-delivery, so the system. So the correspondence will be done by this system exactly. Łukasz, you cooperate a lot with business. This is your main customer. So with a little help from us, right? But the private sector, by definition, moves very quickly on. So you could witness how the business companies were changing after obtaining IT systems and starting to use them. But what are the traps that we, the universities, should try to avoid in the process of switching from paper to IT, to digital? Well, that's a lot of questions, not just one. It's many questions in one. Yes, I do cooperate with business companies, private enterprises from different fields. You are helping me to learn more about the university world. So what you are now doing at the university, the implementations, it's fascinating and impressive. So I'm happy that universities started to invest in these data management systems, because the MDS, which is the subject of this panel, that is documentation, management of documents, and it's part concerned with storing documents. It's one, but the business documents is another part, and they allow us to record and document whatever happens within the business company. So the approach of the companies I know about, because the platform, we started to work on it years ago. So you may have an impression that business companies are more advanced in digitization than universities, but it has not always. They were not always so successful in doing it. They made mistakes. They suffered setbacks on that way, and the gap between business and university is not that huge. It can all be bridged quite easily. And now back to your questions. What could be my advice? Well, no, I will not tell you which exactly processes you should digitize and which you should not, because there are other reasons why to do this and that. But digitization is a process. It's not a project. Try to look at it as a process, not a project with its separate budget, etc. And you will not be able very soon to say that we've finished, we reached the target, and digitization is done. No, it's a broader process, and it has its beginning, but probably will never have its end. When you start digitization, whatever it is, a company or a university, you start collecting information. Once you collect it, you notice how exactly your company works. Then you draw conclusions, then make amendments, corrections, improvements, etc., and new ideas come to your mind. So for one thing, you can calculate all the KPIs, etc. We have, example, we have done together with Forrester Research Agency, it was financial business, and the study showed that digitization of the processes saved them 60, 70%, up to 87% of time saved on handling and processing the flow. 67% were the simple processes, 87% was saved on the more complicated processes. So when you look at the university and what could be the advice to draw as much as possible out of it, first of all, you should go for technologies that will allow you to keep developing all the time, perpetual digitization, both in as concerns the development applications, because they keep changing and also evolved, and they change because you have a very dynamic lawmakers, right? Well, I didn't want to talk about it, but yes, the external circumstance change, and look like the COVID-19 pandemic. What was the impact of it on the functioning of business and public authorities, or the war in the East? So it is important to do the digitization in a way that will not tie or limit the operations of your company or your business. So when digitization is put into service, it's done, then it petrifies the whole thing. And whenever you want to change something in your company, you will have to change the application. So it is important to use technologies which ensure that you can keep developing the thing continuously, both when the financing is provided and afterwards when there is no more financing granted. So you can, in this situation, you can get some support from your own IT department, etc. Yes, that of course are strategic decisions. And the last part is that digitization never ends, because the process, once digitalized, it will keep developing and it will undergo changes as well. So when you get those users involved and engaged in using that, they will quickly notice what are the benefits of that solution. Then they will move those benefits into other areas, not this original one. So the number of processes you will actually want to digitize grows.
Yes, we are talking with many universities all the time, and until recently there was conviction that the modern IT systems are programmed once and forever. They will be like they have been designed, nothing will be done with them. So we need to prepare very detailed specification, etc. However, the situation is that the specification between the time when it's being written until the time when it's published is already outdated. So what needs to be done is to design the system in such a manner as to avoid costs when introducing the necessary changes. This would be a good movement. Dariusz, a question to you. Tell us, how do you do that in a public university, having procedures that have been implemented in a specific manner over long years, with the use of paper, among others, and all of a sudden a project is established, introducing revolution in 23 different areas. What's more, you implement the project and you meet people who are involved, who are willing to do something, who are really committed to conduct the analysis and to implement the project. How did you manage to launch that? What was the motivation? What was the reason? And what are you trying to achieve? Let me just mention, as a side note, that when you scan this QR code, you are not going to win anything, but you will be taken to the website when we have described the experiences from the implementation of our project. A brief note on that. the project implemented at the Technical University? Well, generally speaking, if we're talking about such implementations and the preparation to the process, it's not an easy thing, especially for a university. The first documents concerning the project, concerning the whole procedure, public procurement, etc., in the Cracow Technical University, everything started in 2019. Now it's 2023, and this is the time when we are or we have conducted the implementation. So you can imagine how many things have changed between 2019 and 2023. Unfortunately, well, it took some time in our case. But thanks to that, we were able to get well prepared for the implementation. What is of big importance are the people. People have to be willing. They have to share knowledge. I mean, yes, in a higher education institution, one might say that all topics are the ones for IT specialists, but of course, naturally, not each IT specialist has to know all the areas. So we need people who have knowledge and want to share the knowledge. Without that, we will not be able to implement the processes properly. We won't be able to conduct digitization. So we need people. We also need to put things in order. Before such implementation, you should really think about what the implementation should be like, what it should concern, and you should take a critical look at the regulations binding at the university. So, for example, you should have a vision on whether you should change the basic documents like the office instructions or not, because this can change a lot. So you have to think it over. You have to introduce some order before the implementation. Of course, this is not the only possible approach. I mean, it's valuable to have order before the implementation. It gives us hope that the implementation will succeed within the time limits established. However, you don't always know what needs to be put in order. In the case of the first implementation, we needed to rectify some things during the implementation. Let's remember that it's good to put things in order before the implementation, but then in the process, new things may come up. You need analysts, you need people who have a review of different types of implementations, and based on that, they are able to provide some advice. Now, with the second approach, you need more time for the implementation. You have to have the time buffer. If you have this time buffer, then you should use the experts' knowledge. Of course, first you need to prepare the documents for the process, but during the implementation, new things are going to come up. You will have to put them into specify them in more detail. You will have to use the experience of the implementation team, and you will need to complete putting things in order. But you need to remember that for this you need time. Cracow Technical University, in the context of the implementation, has taken the second approach. We were not ready to introduce full order before the implementation. We are doing a lot of things in the process of implementation, but we planned time for that, and because of that, the implementation has been pretty positive. Thank you. Okay, back to you, Łukasz. The responsibility for electronic documentation management belongs to NASK Institute. It's in the hands of NASK Institute. They've got involved, they prepared the documentation, They also prepared solutions for Polish administration. The new version of the system is being developed at the moment. At different conferences, I have heard many contradictory communications and information. Is AZD, the electronic data management system, a system that would exclude justification for another solution to be applied for electronic document flow, or are the two solutions complementary? So, as a TOPA and WEBCON platform, for example, are these competitive solutions or complementary solutions? Well, let me begin with explaining the need to implement the DOT to such a wide range of entities. I've mentioned the digital policy of the European Union related to handling a lot of matters electronically. This might be the most convenient way, but for this standardization is needed. So, an idea was developed to create a single system, general system, that would support documentation management in all institutions. As we know, higher education institutions are autonomous, so they implement a lot of processes in different manners, using different methods and resources, while the system is quite a stiff framework to manage documents. And in a sense, it's also pretty limited in terms of the functionalities. Could we please see the information from gov.pl? Well, not exactly this website. Yeah, you have the selected functions of the system. Well, these are not the selected functions of the system, but the main functions of the system, the fundamental functions of the system. Well, please see the basic things related to document management, searching for documents, receiving the documents in the institution, application of electronic signatures, handling of the case, broadly understood. So we can ask a question to the audience. Is this the system which will be sufficient for you to handle all the matters? Well, it seems to me that it won't be such a system. The ministry itself prepares different types of additional applications for its internal use and for contacts with institutions abroad. These are low-code applications, like I've said, OSF Plus application. This is a system that develops the system that helps in proceeding the cases related to financing of science. This is there is some verification there, etc. We've done that because the current IZD system, which is pretty extensive and offers a lot of functionalities, IZDRP that is going to be implemented offers definitely fewer functionalities. So I support standardization because standardization can simplify a lot of things. Let's imagine the situation where each citizen using mObywatel application will be able to check the status of his or her case after the national implementation, of course. But it doesn't seem to me that DRP can handle the whole range of specific cases present at universities. Different offices also have different categories of cases, and that DRP cannot keep the pace with these, not to mention universities that are autonomous, unlike offices or state institutions. The situation in universities is much more complex, and a platform like WEBCON, I don't know it fully yet, but I hope I will have a chance to get to know it better. But I think such platforms might be a complementary solutions supporting the whole handling of administrative cases. Łukasz, it's been said here that JRP is a standardized solution, single solution. As far as your platform is concerned, you can say exactly the opposite things. WEBCON BPS, it's, well, like the matter from which you can develop whatever you want to develop. So actually it fits the autonomy of institutions. So this probably is the time when you have to tell us about the low-code technology. All right, we can try. First of all, let me go back, Łukasz, to what you've said. If we try to create a solution which is going to be used by many different entities, then of course we won't be able to create a solution that will go deeply into the specifics of the business processes of a given enterprise or organization. If we compare that to the business world, you all know what accounting and financial system is, right? Universities use such systems also. Such systems make it possible to conduct accounting in accordance with the Act on Accounting, where the way how this should be done is specified. But still, the IT systems that are created as ERP systems to be implemented over the whole range of enterprises, as opposed to the dedicated system, cannot go outside the framework of the Act on Accounting. And that's why, for a long time already, companies have developed dedicated software that fits the needs of a specific company or a specific organization. Going to low code. What is a low code? It's a recipe for this to be done, because actually nobody would wonder today whether business applications would support business. I mean, nobody would run accounting manually today. It's obvious that computer systems will be used. But the question is, do we want to have a system for all other elements of the business? And the question arises, what needs to be done in order for such systems to be established and dedicated to a given organization? I mean, then you don't split the cost of such a system among 500 different organizations. One organization will have to pay for the dedicated system. So what to do in order for us to be able to afford such a system? What to do to create such a system without a limited, reasonable budget? And how to do that in order to be able to talk about several dozen solutions for different business areas instead of having just 2 or 3 applications developed. I don't like the name low code, because actually it makes what WEBCON platform does very shallow. But actually the low code means elimination of the need to code when you want to establish certain application. So you use like a Lego block to build the application that you need, and it's nice if you are able to do that when you don't have a huge budget, you can't afford paying programmers. So we lower the entrance threshold for the users. Sometimes the users of low-code applications are business people or people who are employed in the office, not necessarily IT specialists. So the assumption is simple. If you don't need to know coding, if the application is created by the person who is not an IT specialist, then the cost of producing such an application is much lower. And if you use the predefined elements to create it, then of course the time will also be shorter. So that's it about low code. I don't like the term low code because actually it's not everything. This is not a recipe for the success. You can do things cheaper and faster, but digitization should be something that has no borders. As I've said before, you don't need to develop just 2 or 3 applications. You should be able to develop dozens of applications servicing individual areas of operation of a business. So, low code provides some standardization. So, in order to be sure that the application that Łukasz will create and it will be similar to what I can create or Dariusz creates. Because this will be the users who will use this application, and we don't want to teach the users of how to use yet another new application. Łukasz, if you use the application that your team has created, then easily you will be able to use what Dariusz's team developed. But Dariusz is a specific person. He likes holidays. And he would like to be able to have lots of holidays in spite of the fact that he's developed an application. So the standardization provided by the low code makes it possible for Dariusz to go for holidays because Łukasz can come and take over his responsibilities. And this is very important when we're discussing broadly understood digitization of business processes of universities, enterprises, organizations. So organizations become dependent on applications. So we don't want the situation where something that has been created by one supplier or application provider and the universities, they're bound to cooperate with the same supplier all the time. So according to low-code, an application that is created doesn't matter who created it, whether it was an individual or a team or several teams. These applications should be able to communicate, and they should be maintained irrespective of the configuration of the obligations between the developer and the university. And applications created by different teams should be able to communicate.
Because the whole thing here is that if I ask you, well, Łukasz, can you digitalize all the academy? Yes, of course, it's done. But if I ask that question to anyone else, look, could you design a 5 years digitization plan and have the institution digitalized 100% after that period? No, hardly anyone would agree to do so. So, as you know, after 5 years, these original protocols and assumptions would be out of date. So we need to focus on these areas and do implementations only in those fields where we are sure of the results. But the problem is that when you make an application for one field, Direct does another one for another field, at the end of the day, they will become part of one single process. And this standardization offered, introduced by the platform, can be, these things can be linked based on funding provided. Owing to all that, we can address new coming and new, again and again new needs step by step. That's how it works. That's how what low code is. And the change is extremely important because applications will keep changing, but if we cannot keep pace after them, and after the external environment, then we will be in problem. Well, we could talk more about it. Okay, thank you for what you've said so far. It is close to we are learning from universities concerning the change that is a constant part of the real life. So we've mentioned a number of issues, WEBCON, document management systems, etc. And now let's make it one whole of these elements. We, as PCG Academia, we work together with many universities. We love, and I love, contacts with you at your place in universities, and we devote much time to learn your reflections, your conclusions and findings and proposals. So whether it's DS or whatever else, we always have, it comes to our minds that maybe we need both. Maybe one system can do this very well, and the other system can support and supplement what it does. So we have this diagram here. And Dariusz, could you please comment on it from the angle of the IT leader and manager? Can you explain what are these three segments here? Well, referring to what Mr. Chairman said before, well, holidays, it's not quite so with my holidays. Sometimes you have a chance to go for holidays, but not always. But before I discuss this diagram, I will tell you this. As the IT manager who builds people into the who builds teams of people, but at the stage of implementation, it's good to build a good team, at least able to do administration of the platform. So for me, the advantage here is that on WEBCON we have training courses, and it is possible in a short time at a low cost to train a potential person who will be able to take the job do the job of the system as administration. Of course, that person has to be trained, get some certificates, etc. But it's good when such a person can be present and witness the whole process from the very beginning. So this is certainly an advantage of WEBCON. Apart from the administration and such tasks, there is a bridge between business and suppliers. Of course, you need to understand very well what business wants, and you need to understand the technology itself too. So it's good when your team takes active part all the time throughout the implementation process. Because it's good when they see the thing being born and developed. Now the diagram you can see the systems, field systems at the university. We have two of those. They often come as two separate systems. ERP at the core of our school, and the management system, who is run by the dean and his office. The ERP could also be split into small components, because quite often they do want to divide our ERP into separate modules for the HR and finance. The other modules would be responsible for finance. So apart from these main systems, the university has a number of other systems that you can see there. And there is a multitude of interfaces, of methods to work on the application. You need to handle it, you need to use it. There are different approaches to it, and sometimes the logic of the application is also different. So what can you actually get from this? Well, at least I would like to reach the following. I mean, you could take the WEBCON VPS software and give it an user's interface, not just the presentation interface, because it's not the purpose here, but you want to run certain processes on WEBCON and to make it linked with the faculty systems. So wherever they work, the user can all the time see just one interface before his eyes, just one method of handling it and using it. This is the right approach. Well, let's take just the training courses. You don't need to spend much time on training in just one interface, and that's it. So the trained people can be trained sooner. So sometimes such trainings are expensive, so it's better to cut them short. And during the training, sometimes trainings cannot be done because of the time factor. You can also rely on your own staff, but that staff has other jobs to do too. But when it comes to WEBCON and you've got this joint common interface, it doesn't matter how you replace and change these systems like ERP. That will not be seen by the end user. He will still use the same application, the same interface, and the same logic of operation. And the third part of this graph is integration with the DMS systems, which over time will have to be integrated. So here, this WEBCON, you can use API and get integrated with ZDRP, not by doing the direct integration, but because there are some problems with this integration depending on the supplier, because the suppliers sometimes do not catch up with the solution development. So this is a really added value and an innovative approach and the future potential of it for the user and for being independent of the changes that take place higher than the university. So this picture, well, we designed it by listening from what the best universities, technical and other universities tell us. So, of course, it was nice talking about this, but our panel has come to its end at this point, because it's good to promote good practices, and it's good to allow the conference participants to take home some inspiration. And so why don't we give them some good advice to take home? One advice from each of you, sirs, from the ministry, the supplier, and the university. Well, switching into electronic documentation management. Well, we have to think how to develop these standard solutions for our needs. We need to analyze the market, see what is offered on the market, see if maybe something we can do in-house with our own forces. What else? Frankly, I personally, I am not a great advocate of EZD, because I try to look for opportunities to develop EZD at the external suppliers, so that they will precisely address the needs of the ministry. Łukasz, from my perspective, there's just one advice. Use the implementation of the EZD into the process level, not just recording documents. Use it in order to build a constant, permanent ability to support the new business processes, because documentation is the method of identifying and presenting the business processes. So you need to move into the process stage. Dariusz? From my perspective, the advice, well, do not be afraid of digitization. Do not fear the fact that universities are entering the digital world. You have to accept it. This is an ongoing trend, digitization. If instead of fearing it, just try to go ahead and do it, so to speak, in advance, beforehand. Do not waste time. Do not. Of course, you need to talk to people. You need to discuss it. You need to. But afterwards, you will see the process has only benefits and advantages. Well, standardization, flexibility, let's go digital. Please give them some applause to the panelists.